Congratulations on the film.
Thanks, Rich.
Tell me a little bit about Ticklehead. Is it really as remote where you shot the film as it looks on the movie?
Parts where we shot were. It's a composite of a couple of different places, as movie locations will always be. But we were staying in Trinity, up in Trinity Bay, and that's it's kind of, people, tourists go up there and kind of muck about. But then we went up to Redcliffe and places like that, which are kind of out a bit further up the way, and so parts of it were, and the hurricane was Igor or something that had gone, like a place like that, we'd see places that had been kind of devastated by that and never really got back to themselves. There would have been places that were kind of isolated, yeah.
Well, see, I think just what you just said about these towns that have been devastated by one thing or another, whether it was the weather or the bottom falling out of the fishing industry.
Well, the moratorium is what's killing it.
And whatever it might be is what gives this movie its heart. Because this movie is very funny. But for me, being from the East Coast, I think what I related to more was the sense of place, the idea that you're fighting for a way of life. Particularly your character Murray is fighting for a way of life.
Yeah.
Did that resonate with you at all? Because your country is undergoing some similar-ish problems.
Totally, yeah. No, it was critical to it, and in terms of making the movie, it was a discussion I had with Don McKellar. If this was going to be kitschy and kind of paddywhackery going on, and I look at all the funny little Newfoundlanders running around the place, I had no interest in it. It had to be about the real stuff that's happening up there, which is that a culture is on the verge of extinction because it's not being supported by anything, an economic reality. And, it was interesting, the moratorium. Like, I get it, the fact that it was overfished and all the rest of it, but really the factory ships that are scooping up the bottom of the ocean are the things that need to be curtailed. I went out fishing with some of these guys. They have windows where you go out and you can get 5 cod per person or 15 per boat type of thing for a week or two every so often. And it's biblical. It's like, going out to and taking 5 cod in 5 minutes is it is biblical. It's extraordinary, and the stocks in the inshores are back, to a greater or lesser extent. And I think it's kind of, if they don't, a moratorium is supposed to be temporary, and
I hope so, because if not,
well, they're very close to, like, what's happening is obviously, as you know yourself, the age profile of the people who are in the villages now is getting really beyond where it's sustainable. Somebody said, the average age in this small place was, 60s something. And I thought he was joking. I thought, very good. Because it did, and I said, no, for real.
All the young people leave
and
go
they go to Alberta, or they go out looking for oil, and that oil thing is good. That's a boon for them if it's all handled properly. But for me to have to have the communities that sustain themselves with, they would have to be quotas, but personal amounts of fish that they can make their living off. In personal professional quota that is sustainable, because the culture is extraordinary. It's part of what the film does. The culture is, for me, it was an absolute joy. I do have a certain affinity with that kind of thing, because I know in Ireland, say with the music, for example, in the 50s and 60s it was almost extinct, and then a couple of people, so it suddenly began to take root again. And I've always found a huge wealth and sort of just cultural wealth in it. It's saved now, and the younger kids are learning this music, and it's progressing. It is what it is. Newfoundland is the outer sort of maritime villages. All of that stuff, the music itself is amazing. All of the wealth of knowledge about how to fish, about how to read the sea. There's an extraordinary wealth of culture out there, and it's on the verge of tipping. And like, we were out in St. John's the other night at the opening, and a guy said in the Q&A from the audience, he said, I'm glad you treated, the serious problem of the Newfoundland maritime culture, and they made us laugh our heads off at the same time, and I'm kind of proud of it. It is true, though. It's we're at a critical stage.
What was the premiere like there? Because not a lot of movies are shot down there, and when they do, I think, they're the greatest people in the world, so it must have been a lot of fun, right?
It was a lot of fun, but it was kind of odd. It showed in Toronto here in the film festival, and the reaction actually was much more immediate in Toronto, and I was trying to figure it out. It was great. I really wanted to be in St. John's, because to me, if the movie works there, I can let it go now.
Right.
That's all I cared about, really. Not all I cared about, but like, pretty much it needed to have the imprimatur of the Newfoundlanders on it for me. And you could feel people were a little bit, it's kind of they're saying, okay, are they going to mess up now? Are they going to mess up now? They're kind of waiting for something to fall off the cliff and for it to turn into and there was so the reaction was kind of quieter, but it was gentler, and then you could feel the reassurance happening as actually they found out that it was okay, that they could kind of trust it a little bit more. And I mean, unless they were all just being terribly nice, which is also a possibility, but I didn't think so. I kind of feel they would let us know if they didn't like it.
Well, the presence of Gordon Pinsent alone
should
have, they treat him like a god down there.
He is a god down there, not like, he is. He is God. And having Mark Critch on the thing is no harm either. And he was my touchstone all the time. I started talking to him before we even started the movie. And keeping things straight and, like taking the... just trying to hit the proper note, No, it was a joy down there, and we had a really good time.
And tell me about hitting all the proper notes, because, as you say, you're sitting in front of, just a couple of nights ago at the premiere, you're sitting in front of the most critical audience in the world, an audience of Newfoundlanders. Clearly it was, but why was it so important that you get every note right? Because Murray, as I watched it, as a Maritimer, I watched it and said, that's close enough. That's as close as it's going to get.
Yeah, well, it has to be, he's a fictional character, so he's not going to be a fisherman.
Yeah.
It has to. He's larger than life. He's somebody who takes it on, and he's also not been himself for 20 years since this moratorium went in. So he's a guy that's on the brink. So he has to tell a lot of lies. He has to get away with it. It has to be okay to tell a lot of lies. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff kind of being in the air, but you had to believe that in the same time he actually does count his own dignity as worth something. So it was important to get all those notes because it's a very thin line to walk. You could turn him into just a ne'er-do-well, or you could turn him into some sort of a idiot hero who doesn't make any sense or is not based in reality. So it was important to try and walk the place where this guy's actually, the ends are justifying the means for him, really.
Well, I walked away thinking these are all decent people who understand that you have to bend the truth just a little bit sometimes to do the right thing. And in this case, though, the truth gets bent several different ways.
It gets mangled, Richard. Let's be honest about it. It gets mangled, yeah.
Had you seen the French film?
Yes, yeah. And the humour is different in the sense that it's the same setup, a lot of the same lines, but actually the culture is different, so therefore the humour is different.
Yeah.
And it was important that it emanated from, and that's why it was important again to get these notes kind of pretty right, is that it emanated from the Newfoundland culture rather than taking a Quebec way of thinking and chucking it into Newfoundland. So that was like we had to kind of reinvent where it had to be reborn in a sense, and then move from that rather than be helicoptered in, if you know what I mean.
What did you take away from this whole experience? You're down there. I've never met anyone who's gone to Newfoundland, and when they've left, I've never met anyone that said I wouldn't go back.
Right.
That's the thing. What did you take away from the experience of shooting up there?
Well, I get it. I know that there's a kind of a similar mindset in Ireland a lot of the time. A lot of people, though, get fed up and want to get out of it. Yeah. That's okay too. Choice is always a good thing. But I know it does. The land has a kind of, and the sea, particularly in Newfoundland, has a way of kind of worming its way into your heart, where you don't feel quite complete without it, and sometimes that can be a debilitating thing, and it makes people feel a little bit dispossessed, or sometimes it gets in the way of ambition, but for the most part, I think once it's kept in perspective, and once the culture is valued and it's there as a choice that if you want to be there, you can be there. If you want to, that's where you should be heading, I guess. I mean, I came away feeling there's a part of Newfoundland in my heart forever. That's it. That's the way it's going to be. I'm unashamed about that. I love them over there in the sense that it does feel like long lost cousins in a way. The sensibilities are quite similar in a lot of ways. Yeah. But it also has its own, it's very unique sort of thing that's going on. It's the people and just the natural quality of the people was pretty great.
Are you a city boy?
Yeah, but my father was in a town in the middle of the country. We used to go down there for 3 weeks every summer and stuff like that. So I had a little bit of an insight into all that. But I grew up in Dublin.
Yeah, yeah. So the big city. So this is a much different thing for you then.
Nah, no. I was always into, as I say, music and stuff like that in Ireland. So I tend to go down the west of Ireland as much as I can, and so it's not utterly alien.
Right.
Not really.
Tell me a little bit about working with Don McKellar. He is someone, when I saw this film, I just thought that he, as a director, really nailed the tone of this, because it's so important to the people here, and just so important for the success of the film. And I've loved Don's other work. This seems to be something different again from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I met him first, we talked about the tone, and we talked about what we've been aiming at. We want to respect this culture, and at the same time, I don't want to turn into a grimhead and not get the laughs. So how do we work it? And I mean, I knew that was my journey, and I didn't want to really go with somebody who was going to go for the very broad humour of it at the expense of the people, or have them wandering around like half-wits, which is, a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
People kind of do that in films quite a lot, and it's not. I don't think it's not something that I want to be involved with. So in terms of that, from the beginning, the way we were kind of on a similar road, trying to find that all the way through, and I think it was critical to the way it works, that there is a truth to it.
Right. That's your time. Thank you so
Cheers.
much. And
Thanks.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. Thanks. Yeah.